Hello and welcome to CINEMATICON Ex Mortis, Episode 3. I'm Kenny, and I'm here with...
Heather.
Yeah, we did it. Third time's the charm. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at an Italian motion picture called Tenebrae from 1982, directed by Dario Argento, the master of giallo cinema. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a second. It was released in 1982. The standard quote-unquote English language title used today, Tenebrae, with the AE on the end, is actually a Latin word, pronounced Tenebrae in Latin, meaning darkness. The Italian title is the same word in Italian, so spelled with just the E on the end. It was originally released in the US under the title Unsane, which is quite a stupid title if you ask me, so I'm glad they changed it to the cool-sounding Latin title instead. You could tell how much I like cool-sounding Latin titles from the title of this podcast. By the way, to all the people who've been pointing out in the comments that the title of this podcast is actually bad Latin, I am fully aware of that fact. The preposition ex, of course, takes the ablative case, so it ought to be CINEMATICON EX MORTIBUS, not Ex Mortis. So thank you to everyone for pointing that out. But
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it's a big hullabaloo in the comments there.
I want to see that. I want to hear about this.
Okay, I was lying. I admit it.
You lied?
Nobody pointed it out. But
oh my God!
I did want to address for all the Latinists out there that I am aware of the bad Latin, but I decided to deliberately break the grammatical rules of a dead language rather than spoil the Evil Dead illusion I was going for there. But that's a sidebar. So the movie we're watching, or that we watched for this week,
yeah, I'm not watching it again.
That's a good idea, actually. Maybe we could do the same one next week and watch it again.
Okay, thanks though. That's sweet, but no.
So it was written and directed by Dario Argento, the director of many horror classics, including Suspiria, Deep Red, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and Phenomena, and starring his then-girlfriend Daria Nicolodi. And they are the parents of actress-director Asia Argento, who has been much in the news recently. You may have heard about some of that, Heather.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even make the connection.
Yeah, so both of her parents were involved in this movie, and her parents are named Dario and Daria. So there you go.
Okay.
So now you know that. It also stars John Saxon, whom horror fans will recognize as the dad in A Nightmare on Elm Street, as the agent character, the literary agent. And the American actor Anthony Franciosa stars as the protagonist. Like many Italian films, the dialogue was not recorded on set, but it was dubbed in post instead. Many actors spoke their lines in English on set and then dubbed themselves in the studio, so a lot of the time the fact that it's dubbed is pretty inconspicuous in the English language version. The awesome Italian prog rock band Goblin had scored Argento's previous films Deep Red and Suspiria. They had broken up by 1982 when this film came out, but 3 of the 4 band members collaborated on this score, so while they're credited individually instead of as Goblin, it is still pretty much another Goblin score. We're going to do a plot synopsis to start with, and we've done spoiler warnings for the previous episodes, but I have to say this is probably our spoileriest episode ever, because this movie is a murder mystery, so you really should just go and watch it now. I think Heather probably didn't like it too much. Is that accurate?
It's okay. I didn't hate it, but okay. I just...
So a ringing endorsement from Heather, and another one from me. I love this film. It's one of my favorites. So I do recommend that you go and check it out before listening to this podcast, because we will spoil whodunit. But here's a little plot summary for you. Anthony Franciosa plays Peter Neal, a famous American author of violent detective novels who visits Rome during a book tour supporting his wildly successful new novel titled Tenebrae. He brings with him a personal assistant, Anne, played by Daria Nicolodi, and an agent, Bulmer, played by John Saxon. Arriving in his hotel room, Peter is confronted by police detectives Germani and Altieri, who notify him that a woman has been found murdered with pages from his new book shoved down her throat. Peter also discovers a letter apparently written to him by the killer containing a quotation from the book, indicating that the murder, and those to follow, are a kind of twisted tribute to him from a fan. Over the rest of the film, Peter tries to figure out who the killer is, while people around him keep getting picked off. So, what did you think of this one, Heather?
You know how I always want to say like positive things about stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really liked the like imagery and stuff. Overall, I found it kind of confusing.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah. It's upsetting to me that we can't like talk about stuff anymore. We have to like save it for the podcast, so we can't like have a discussion like we used to. So that's,
Well, this is the discussion. Let's do it now.
I know, but now I can't like ask dumb questions.
No, ask dumb questions. Come on.
Okay. So I really had trouble like following the story when I was watching it. And I was just like, oh man. Okay. So we can spoil shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I kind of had a feeling from the beginning that Peter Neal was the killer.
Mm-hmm.
I just got that sense. I know that that's like shitty because it's supposed to be like a big, plot twist, whatever. But I kind of was getting the feeling. And there's like all these like dream sequences that he has, like flashbacks about this woman in the red shoes.
Yeah. So you picked up right away that those were his dreams.
I did, but it also was confusing at the same time. It was like, what is this? Like, is this a dream? Is this a flashback? Like, who is she? Did this really happen? Is this a fantasy? I didn't really understand what was going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's part of the mystery that's not really explained until the very last scene.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like that. I didn't love it. And then the red shoes kind of show up again. With that's his ex-wife, right? That woman with the dark hair.
Yes. So we should maybe say, like a lot of good detective stories, there are a lot of characters in this whose main function is to be a sort of red herring, right? Like we're set up to think, oh, Jane must be the killer because we find out that she has come to Rome to sort of stalk Peter. And so it's like, okay, she's doing some kind of weird business. And then near the end of the film, she calls Anne and asks her to come over and tells her that she wants to apologize for all the things that she's done, that she feels like she's one person some of the time and another person another part of the time. A lot of things that you could read as, okay, she's got this double personality. She's a psycho killer. And then she asks Anne to come over. And then we see her pull out a gun and wait with a drawn gun for Anne to come. So we think, okay, she knows that Peter is having a relationship with Anne and she's going to murder her. So she's really set up to be like, we think she's the killer. But then, of course, what happens instead is that an axe flies through the window and chops her arm off. And it turns out that Peter Neal, the author, was the killer.
And I feel like Jane, her name is, right?
Yeah.
The dark-haired, the ex-wife. I feel like she has the best death in the whole movie.
Yeah, that is an amazing death sequence.
It's really good.
I love it. The arterial spray, just painting the walls with her blood.
Yes.
That's so brutal. And that's part of the genre that this film is in. So, have you heard of the Giallo before?
No, I'm really not familiar with this at all.
Yeah. So, you may have thought that I was talking about a kind of iced cream, but in fact, that's called gelato.
I was not, but I'm not that stupid, but thanks. Go on.
Giallo instead is literally, it's the Italian word that means yellow. And in Italy in the 1920s, a major book publisher came out with an imprint of cheap paperback murder mysteries, and they all had this bright yellow binding. So that, I guess, stuck around for a long time, and it became really ubiquitous. And so the term giallo came to just mean a thrilling murder mystery story. And then in the movies, the giallo sort of genre got started with the films of Mario Bava in the early 60s. So the first one ever was The Girl Who Knew Too Much, a play on the Alfred Hitchcock Man Who Knew Too Much. And he went on to make Blood and Black Lace and a bunch of other gialli. And what sort of differentiates this from suspense films made in other countries is they are horror films, so they really emphasize the gory deaths. There's often a lot of gore, a lot of sexuality in these films. They're more extreme than American or British films from the same period would ever be. And in fact, Tenebrae became one of the infamous video nasties, films that were banned in Britain on video, so you could only get them on the black market through the 1980s because of the death scenes that were like what we're talking about. Some other features of the genre: in a giallo, we always see scenes with the killer, but we don't see the face, so that we don't know who it is. And the killer always wears black leather gloves, like these exact gloves that the killer has. And whenever we see him in this film, that's in every giallo film. And there's often point of view shots from the perspective of the killer, where we hear sort of heavy breathing on the score. The giallo is really important for the horror genre in general because it was a big influence on the slasher. So those early slashers like Black Christmas and Halloween were taking a lot from the giallo. The mysterious killer who has a mask, who we don't see the face. We get the point of view shots from the perspective of the killer, and then we reveal who it is at the end, blah, blah, blah. The series of inventive, gory kills, all this stuff.
Okay, so I have a question. You said I can ask dumb questions. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
So Peter Neal has this like young guy as his like assistant,
Johnny,
in Italy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So remember they go to the house of the like news anchor guy who's been like making references to Peter Neal's book, and they think he's like a suspect, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they go to his house, and
it turns out he is the killer.
He did like some of the murders.
Yeah, so we've been saying that the main character, Peter Neal, is the killer. That's only partly true. So we find out at the end that Peter Neal turned out to actually be a good detective, which this is another thing in the giallo film that often is the case, is that there's like, a serial killer and a murder investigation, and the main character is not a cop. It's like an ordinary person, often an American who traveled to Italy for some reason, and that person ends up solving the crime that the cops can't solve. So here, Peter Neal, as we would expect, figures out who did it, and then he realizes he can use that as an opportunity to get rid of people that he doesn't like, in particular his ex-wife Jane and his agent Bulmer, who's having an affair with her. And so he kills the killer, Dexter style, and then kills Jane and Bulmer, but then he also has to kill Johnny because Johnny knows too much. Okay,
so Johnny witnesses, who they think the killer is at the time being murdered.
Yeah, and he is the killer.
Okay, so they witness the killer being murdered. He doesn't really see who does it. It's very vague and whatever. And he runs back to Peter to find him unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter hit himself in the head with a rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
just wanted to be clear on that.
I think that's the one sequence in the film that I don't think makes complete sense, because how did Peter get all the way from... I mean, right. He has like 10 seconds in between when Johnny last looks over at him and when he's got to be putting the axe in Cristiano Berti's head. So that doesn't entirely make sense to me. But it's really just a timing thing. Like they could have added in another 10 seconds for him to run over there.
Yeah.
And pretty much everything else in the movie, I think, makes perfect sense, which is amazing for an Italian film. Italian movies tend to not make any sense.
Okay.
If you look at Dario Argento's previous 2 films, Suspiria and Inferno, which who knows, maybe one day we will. Neither of those films make much of any sense. It's just like a series of unfortunate events happening to beautiful young women. Let's talk about the music. What did you think of the music in this movie?
I have several notes about music. I really love the opening, the music sequence in the the opener. It's a lot different than the score. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like an opening song that's like really cool. It's like very 80s, and I loved it.
Yeah, so I think probably our listeners will have heard that. I'm going to use one of the songs as the intro music for this episode.
Okay, okay.
Because just putting my cards on the table, this is my favorite horror movie score of all time. I have it on iTunes. I listen to it all the time. I've heard all these songs a million times.
I had no idea.
If I was ever going to be like a WWF wrestler and I need a song to like play as I came out, I would totally pick one of these tracks.
Okay. Well,
and
they're
very
really
80s, very synth.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the opening song was a lot more 80s than the rest of the score. It was different. But I really did like the score. They used a lot of creepy organ music, which I love for horror movies. If you put like creepy organ music, I'm just going to be kind of like hypnotized by that and think it's a great horror movie, even if it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. So, yeah, I noticed the score many times, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I love the main theme. It's so cool how it's like the main riff that's playing over is in 5/4, but the drum track is in 4/4. So every time it like alternates which beat is being accented. And it just gives it this off-kilter, really cool vibe. Like, it might sound chaotic the way I'm describing it, but it's not. But it's just like... It gives it this unpredictable sort of flair. It's really cool.
Totally. I think most people aren't like music nerds like you, but I feel like if you do anything like that where it's offbeat like that a little bit, it makes you just a little bit unsettled.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like cognitively pick up on it, it does a really good job of like subconsciously like making you uncomfortable. Yeah.
But I think the music here, and this is something that applies to a lot of Italian movies too, like Italian horror movies from this period. It's not really what you would expect from a horror movie score, certainly nowadays. Like, horror movie music now is a lot more like ambient. And even at that time, you might look at like The Shining. Like the music there is just like this sort of cacophonous background thing that just like will slowly swell up during the really scary sequences, and it's just very like atonal, and it definitely doesn't have a beat to it. Whereas this music is like it's jamming, man. Like it really like gets your toe tapping, and that's kind of a weird mood to be in while you're watching somebody get murdered. Like it's like almost getting you hyped for it.
Okay.
I mean, there are creepy tracks too, like the one that plays during the dream sequences is like more of a creepy sort of thing. And those, by the way, those dream sequences are the only sequences in the film other than the murder sequences that have music. There's no music anywhere in the movie unless somebody's about to get killed.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of like a neat thing. Like the movie is kind of priming you to get scared when you hear the music. Kind of like Jaws famously did that, where, you know, every time you hear the the shark is coming, and then so when they don't do it, when he's just like shoveling the chum off the back of the boat, and then suddenly the shark, you know, comes up behind him, it's like this huge shock because you've been like trained like Pavlov's dog to just know that you're not going to see the shark unless you hear the song first.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Another interesting thing with the music is during the scene where the book critic and her ex-lover are murdered, it turns out that the song that's playing is diegetic, like it's in the world of the film, because Tilda starts shouting, turn off the music, and then she actually does turn off the music and the score turns off at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of like an interesting moment where the film is kind of playing with what's part of the film world and what isn't, and sort of like reminding us that, you know, hey, you're hearing scary music right now, like pay attention to what we're doing, which I guess ties into like one of the major themes of the film, which is, I mean, this is a really like metafictional film, and in that way I think it's a really good pairing with Misery, the first movie that we watched. So they're both movies about writers who have to deal with like crazy fans appropriating their work. So in Misery, you've got Annie Wilkes, who also, both movies are, the title is the name of the book, right? So Misery is the book series that Paul Sheldon writes in Misery, and Tenebrae is the book that Peter Neal writes in Tenebrae. And they write these books, and then fans sort of take it to this really crazy place. In this case, a crazed fan is sort of acting out the murders that are described in the novel Tenebrae, using the same weapon and targeting women, which I guess happens as well in the book. And the character in the book is obsessed with trying to eliminate human perversity by killing people that he thinks of as like perverse or promiscuous. And when the killer, who we don't realize yet is the killer, when Cristiano Berti interviews Peter Neal briefly, he says something like, so your book is about, you know, the need to eliminate perversity in our world, or something like the problem of perversity. And Peter's like, no, not really. And he's like, well, but the killer says here, and he's like, yeah, but the killer's the bad guy. Did you get that? And the only real aberrant behavior in the book, and then he gets cut off. But I mean, what he's about to say is the real aberrant character is the killer, not the people he's killing. So I think, you know, the movie is interested in how we are, in the audience, are interpreting it and other movies that Argento has made in which crazed killers, you know, kill women. He's been accused of being a misogynist and of encouraging violent behavior. And Peter Neal, likewise, is accused of that. He's got this fan who sort of is killing based on his book. And then he's got Tilda, who's an old acquaintance of his, and who is, in the modern parlance, we might say, an SJW. She angrily accuses him of being sexist because these books have male heroes and they're all about these beautiful women getting murdered. And that's an accusation that has been leveled at Argento as well. So what do you make of all that, Heather?
I mean, I have a note about that. I thought it was really cool that it was kind of self-aware, almost, you know? And I was kind of interested to see where it went with that. And I wasn't super impressed with what they did with it. I feel like in the end, Anne ultimately killed Peter Neal, right? But it was an accident.
Yeah. So in the final scene of the film, Peter gets caught by the detective. And in order to avoid getting arrested, he pretends to kill himself with like a fake razor that shoots out fake blood. He pretends to slit his throat. They leave him there lying on the floor, and then the detective realizes his mistake, runs back in to find that Peter's gone. He sneaks up behind him and axes him, and then Anne runs in after the detective. Peter's getting ready to kill her, but in opening the door, she knocks over this like elaborate like modern art piece that's like a bunch of metal cones stacked on top of each other, and one of the like razor sharp metal cones that makes up this sculpture goes right through Peter's chest, impaling him. So yeah, did you feel like that spoke to that theme at all?
I feel like it did, but it didn't do well enough. I feel like it shouldn't have been an accident. I would have liked her to have actually killed him herself on purpose. Not like, in some kind of slapstick comedy move. Not that it was arranged to be funny, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, some people have pointed out that in that scene, Peter is literally killed by art. So, the whole film is about the sort of violent potential of art. And then in the end, the artist is killed by art. So maybe that's part of what the film's trying to say. But what you're suggesting, that we would have like a female killer at the end, like the woman sort of take over the violent potential that men have been using for the whole movie.
Well,
I think
I don't think she should have killed him because like she wanted to. I think she should have killed him out of self-defense, and it still would have been enough.
Yeah. Well, and that is one way that people have defended some slasher movies of the charge of being sort of sexist or conservative. So Carol J. Clover has a book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film, that I think considers this sort of argument that in the slasher movie, you do have this male killer, oftentimes, not always, like Friday the 13th, spoiler alert, killing a bunch of female victims, but by the end, you always have a final girl. So there's always one woman who survives, and in the end has to sort of take up this phallic weapon like a knife or a gun and use that to kill the killer. And so in a way, it's a kind of like female empowerment thing, but it's also kind of disturbing that the woman has to sort of take up the male aggressive role in order to become empowered. And this film kind of doesn't do that at all. Which I think if Argento's goal had been to refute the accusations of sexism of people like Tilda in real life, then, he might have done something like that. He might have had the killer be a woman and the victims be men or something like that. But in a lot of ways, this is sort of like a by the numbers giallo in terms of gender. And that's part of what I think is really kind of interesting, is it really kind of doesn't seem to me that Argento is trying to exonerate himself from the charges that have been leveled against him and his sort of genre. Because, Peter Neal really is nuts, right? If he's the stand-in for Argento, for people who work in this genre, then that's not a great look, I would have to say, right? Like, he is somebody who has these deep-seated violent sexual urges that go back to this sort of primal moment of sexual humiliation that we see in the flashbacks, that he's sort of like helplessly acting out. Or I guess he's sort of, he's repressed that for a long time, but then once he hears about this series of murders, it sort of unleashes that within himself. But his books, it seems like, are an expression of something that he's otherwise repressed about himself, a sort of like deep-seated misogyny. So I don't know. I mean, that might be my reading of the film, that it's kind of like one of those movies like Funny Games, where the argument of the film seems to be, don't watch movies like this. Like, there's something wrong with you if you like these movies. So I don't know what it says about me that I still like it, even though that's my reading of it.
I don't think you want me to make that analysis.
You mentioned the visuals. So how would you describe the look of the film?
Well, it's very bright.
Yeah.
There's a lot of use of like very bright colors.
And that's another reason why I like the title Tenebrae because it means darkness.
Darkness.
So
Yes.
it's ironic because this is a movie where even in scenes where we see the killer put out the lights, it's still perfectly, everything's visible. It's like, broad daylight.
Yeah, there's a couple murders that happen in broad daylight.
Yeah.
With people around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, Bulmer is killed right out in the open. Yeah, the way that the scenes are lit is, it's very unusual for a horror movie. You'd expect to have a lot more of like, dark corners and, places where, the killer could jump out from there or from there. But this film manages to, have that terror and that suspense and that feeling that the killer could be anywhere without relying on that. That's another aspect of the Giallo is like very stylish, very colorful visuals. So Dario Argento in particular is known for that. His movie Suspiria was the last movie ever processed in Technicolor before they shut the plant down. And it's like renowned for the amazing color in it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love the color in this. Yeah, another thing that I think adds to the disturbingness of the sort of the theme of the audience as complicit with these murders and with the misogyny of the killer is the POV shots from the perspective of the killer. Like I said, that's a staple of the genre, but here it's like extra weird because we've been sort of primed to think about in what sense we're sort of complicit with what's happening. And then we also get these like amazing sort of POV shots or not POV shots, I'm not sure, where there's like the killer seems to be almost omniscient. So I'm thinking about, I guess I'm thinking about this scene a lot. The scene where the lesbians are killed. We get this amazing crane shot that starts in Tilda's room and then it goes out the window. Then it climbs along the wall, it goes up onto the ceiling, and then it comes around to the other side, and we end up looking at Marion, her ex-girlfriend. And it's like it's like almost makes you feel like the killer can just go anywhere and do anything. It's kind of like David Fincher's camera moves, where it's like aided by CGI, the camera can like go through things and go through walls and stuff. I don't know, there's like a fantasy element to it, which is kind of sick.
Sure. Yeah.
Any stuff that you did not like about the movie other than the confusing plot?
No, I mean, if it had been like more linear, I would have really liked it. Like there's a lot of things about it that I really like. So if it had just been like easier to follow, I wouldn't have had a problem. But I feel like there's a lot of unnecessary things. Like I kind of feel like the ex-wife and all that stuff is kind of clunky. You know what I mean? I really just think they could have done that just more seamless, and I don't know. I really feel like that whole ex-wife and the affair with the book, what's he called, a book agent or whatever, it was kind of, I don't know. It just didn't seem to really need to be there.
Oh, but it's his whole motivation for becoming the killer.
I guess, but then what was the point of having relations with his assistant and then blah blah blah? It's like what does he really want?
So you feel like Peter kind of doesn't really hold together as a character?
No, I feel like his motivation is messy.
Yeah. So it might be a case of like a twist that doesn't fully work. Like I feel like there's two kinds of twist endings. Like there's a twist ending that makes you go, oh, and then there's a twist ending that makes you go, what?
Yeah, see, I'm the latter.
Yeah. So like you felt like the twist actually made things earlier in the film not make sense.
Yeah, I really did. And I was just like, I mean, like I said, I always had that inkling that he was the killer, but I didn't buy his motivation. I mean, I guess it you know, it let you know later on that he had this incident when he was young with the woman in the red shoes and the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he had never really, he'd always been like fucked up after that and had, been twisted in the head and whatever. But I didn't buy the fact that he had any sort of attachment to his ex-wife at all.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that
they don't really
was
hint too much at that.
right. So that didn't make any sense to me. I was like, what? Like, he doesn't give a shit about her. He's never mentioned her. He's never thought about her. He's never talked about her.
We also don't know that he knows about her affair with Bulmer. Or
Right.
how he knows
So,
about
like,
that. I mean, obviously
that
he
whole
did,
thing.
since he kills them both.
Right. But that whole thing just seems out of character to me.
But I guess that's part of what the movie's doing, though, is like, we think we know him, but we actually don't. The way that those flashback scenes are shot is really interesting. The way that it's just like a series of close-ups on parts of people's bodies. Like, we rarely see anybody's whole body. We just see the feet, or we see the boys just their legs, right? When the mystery woman is on her knees and they're all standing around her, we just see like a series of, identical khaki slacks standing around her. I don't know, what effect does that have?
The only thing it reminded me of was the movie 9. I don't know if you've seen it.
The animated movie?
No, never mind. Don't worry about it.
Is there like a musical with Daniel Day-Lewis by that name?
Yes. There's like a scene in that movie where he has like this flashback to like his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got almost like this fetish now because of it. And he keeps trying to recreate it like later on in his life.
Yeah, so it does, I think, it fetishizes certain things, particularly the shoes.
Yes. Right.
It also, I don't know, it makes me think of like being a child where like you see people a lot of the time, like it takes effort to look up and see somebody's face. So you see like the lower halves of people. You see hands, see legs.
That's how I described my dad when I was little, because my dad's 6'4". So he's like this really tall man, and all my memories of him when I'm a child are like of his knees down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's very realistic.
Yeah, so it puts you into that childish space, which is disturbing because these are like scenes of sex and murder. It's also it's like dehumanizing too, to like, cut people into pieces. I mean, that's what the killer's going to end up doing. Peter's going to end up hacking Jane to bits with the axe. So maybe there's some foreshadowing there that the camera sort of cuts people to pieces in his memory. It's maybe like the way that a psychopath views the world. People are just like collections of body parts.
Right.
The beginning and ending of the movie are pretty interesting too. So it starts with the killer's POV with the black leather gloves, and he's reading out of the book Tenebrae, and he throws the book onto a fireplace, and we watch it burn. So in a movie that's about how art has the potential to kill, it's actually the art that is destroyed at the beginning. We open with a scene of book burning. I don't really know what to make of that.
I don't know either. I mean, I really liked that sequence. It doesn't really do justice in the fact that it's like trying to be a foreshadowing into whatever's to come in the movie. I feel like in a way it is, but also it tells you nothing.
Well, but the killer has an interesting relationship with Peter and his book, right? Because I mean, we first see him burning the book, but he's also obsessively reading out of it. And then in his first murder, he takes pages out of the book and rips them out and shoves them down the throat of the victim. So he's making her eat that book. I mean, that's kind of weird. It's another scene where he sort of seems to be destroying it. And then one of his later messages to Peter, or is it to the police? I'm not sure, says that he's going to kill the great corruptor. And the TV newsman jokes that a lot of politicians are going to be leaving town, worried that he's referring to them. But it's clearly Peter that he's referring to as the great corruptor. At least that's the way the characters take it. So he, I guess, also like Annie Wilkes in Misery, has a kind of love-hate relationship with the auteur. He's obsessed with his work. He in some way wants to emulate what he's reading, but he doesn't really understand it. And he also feels compelled to do violence to the art and the artist. I don't know what to make of all that. And then the last shot of the film, it ends like, have you seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes, we watched it together.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, that has like one of the all-time great endings where the final girl is on the back of the truck. She's driving down the highway. She's escaped from Leatherface, and she just starts screaming her head off, like, and we leave her. We go to credits when she's just in full freak out, and Leatherface is like spinning around like a madman on the road. Like there's no denouement. There's no falling action. It's just like we leave the characters in. I mean, she's safe, so the conflict's been resolved, but it's clear that she's like been traumatized beyond belief and is just in full freak out mode. And that's how we leave this film too. Like Anne is just screaming and screaming, and then it just cuts to credits.
I felt bad for her.
Yeah,
it's sad.
She's my favorite character. Like, I love Anne.
Okay, that's good. I just felt it feels realistic in that way, like what would you do if you were in a situation? You'd probably scream your head off, like, oh my God, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
So.
But it's like the film doesn't give us time to process, or her time to process what's happened at all. It's just like, there you go. Fuck you. Go away. Movie's over, get out.
I mean, before she even went into the house and, inadvertently finished him off, she was in the car, like, crying.
Yeah, she's already extremely distraught.
So she was already super fucked up. And then things got worse. So, yeah, the screaming seems about right to me.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, in a way, maybe it's a perfect ending, because, as we've talked about, this film really cracks open some really heady issues, things that we, as an audience, feel like, we really need to process this stuff. We really need to think this through. Why are we watching these kind of movies? Does it say something bad about us? Is there something kind of violent about what we're doing? And then it doesn't resolve them. I don't think it really has answers, or at least exculpatory answers to these questions. And it just slams the door on us at the end, and it's like, deal with it. So
it's like, well, bye.
Yeah. So I think
you liked it.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed. Here's some more music, and that's the end. And maybe that's what keeps me coming back, Like there are movies that I really like, but where I feel like I have a handle on it. Like maybe someday we watched the Babadook together a while ago.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll probably do an episode on that one eventually.
I'd love to do that one.
But there's one where I feel like I pretty much get what the movie's about and what it's saying.
Okay, but a lot of people don't.
Sure.
That's what I've found out.
And maybe this movie, maybe I'm being pessimistic. Maybe it does have something that it is clearly saying about violence and misogyny in horror movies. And I just haven't found it yet. But because I haven't found it yet, I keep coming back to it. It keeps drawing me back in. And then, of course, it's such a fun ride. So, I guess that's it for this episode of Cinematicon Ex Mortis. Join us next time. We'll be watching the classic 1935 James Whale film Bride of Frankenstein. But until then, enjoy some more swinging sounds of Tenebrae.